What if you could go faster than light? What would happen? Well, the thing is you can't go faster than light. So physics can't answer that question. Is this CERN? No, of course not. I'd love you to do some videos on sci-fi concepts like force shields, ray guns, wormhole travel, etc. That's not a bad idea. Are we slices of inanimate objects from other dimensions? No, I don't think so. Does renormalization only need to happen for UV cutoffs? No, you can also renormalize away IR cutoffs as well. What's a good tool for physics research? I just started at a lab. What do you mean a tool? So, I mean, it depends on what research you're doing, of course. If there was a way to bring lava to space, what would happen? It'd freeze fairly slowly. If you were to learn physics from scratch, how would you do it? Probably the same way. Go to school. Yeah, where were we? No, you're good. What's the definition of a physics? The definition of a physics? Physics is a field of study that studies the dynamics and properties of the fundamental pieces of matter that make up our universe. How long until quantum computing is used in trading markets? I have no idea. Think there are any naturally occurring wormholes large enough for a spacecraft to pass through them? I don't think that there are any naturally occurring wormholes, at least not non-microscopic ones. Does that mean QED in its current state has to be an effective field theory? Just does QG fix it? In some sense it does. It has poles, right? It has divergences that you can't get rid of. So yeah, probably. What metal conducts the best electricity? Silver. It's silver. When people say the universe is expanding, what is it expanding into? It's not expanding into anything. So by definition, the universe is everything. There's nothing outside the universe. So perhaps the universe is infinitely large, perhaps it's not, but regardless, when we say that the universe is expanding, what we really mean is that the way that we measure distances is getting bigger. So if two things were 1 meter apart out in the middle of nowhere in space, in 10 billion years, they'll be 2 meters apart. That's all it means. What question keeps you up at night? I sleep pretty well. Is there a Margaritaville on Mars? Probably not. Why was OG renormalization so controversial? Well, because it was kind of ad hoc. That's all. What do medical physicists generally do first? Work? I don't know. I'm not a medical physicist. I don't know what they do at the beginning of their day. What is the largest scale thing that seems to defy the laws of physics? It's not, well, nothing. However, there are things that seem to defy kind of assumptions of modern physics. There's the Great Wall, which is a large structure in the universe. It's far larger than we thought possible. So it doesn't defy any laws of physics. It's just larger than we thought. There's also this thing called it's like a gamma ray burst ring, GRBR or something like that, which is also far larger than we expected. Is the universe now younger than 13.8 billion years old? No. Could particles be creating their own wormhole we can't see instead of a field traveling forth? I don't know what the question means. If we could witness any event in the future, past or future, what would it be and why? Seeing the Big Bang would be pretty cool, or at least being around in the early universe. Do most physicists believe in free will or no? I have no idea. I don't, but any quantum gravity models that involve the measurement problem? Not that I'm familiar with, but I imagine many, well, okay. Penrose thinks that the measurement problem is resolved by quantum gravity causing a collapse of the wave function. Is gravity a force or an acceleration? It's a force. Forces cause acceleration. What happened to LK99? It was a hoax. Is there any expansion within galaxies or are they bound? There is no expansion within galaxies. They are bound by the gravitational force. Is the space between objects expanding or just all space in general? No, it's actually just the space between galactic groups. Anything smaller than a galactic group is sufficiently strongly held together that expansion doesn't affect it, because the expansion is very weak. Will a warp drive be possible ever? I don't think so. At least not a superluminal warp drive. Good text for self-study of physics? Depends on where you are, but you could just look at like decent universities and just look at their curriculum. Those textbooks will probably be quite good. Were you good at physics in high school? I didn't take physics in high school. Thought you were going over a paper that shows the expansion is faster than originally thought. Well, yeah, but that paper has not been peer-reviewed, and I'm not even sure how good it is, to be honest. I was just reading a paper I'd never read before, but Yeah, it doesn't seem to be a great paper, in my opinion. I mean, why Everettian over Penrose collapse? Well, because I don't know why gravitational forces would cause wave function collapse, but like electromagnetic forces wouldn't. Could we ever use wormholes to send signals to the past? Well, I don't think wormholes are real. Best classes to take become physics master. Well, get a degree in physics. Why is the universe not local real? Well, it's either not local or not real, and or it's all a big coincidence, right? Basically, there's this experiment, or the series of experiments in the 70s and 80s and 90s, where they showed that if you make certain measurements in if you make certain measurements of like entangled particles, they behave in a way that is so highly correlated that it just can't happen if the universe was both local and real. Do you play chess? Not really. Why is Reviewer 2 always such a meanie? Good question. Good question. I had a paper rejected from classical and quantum gravity because of Reviewer 2. So I know the feeling. Theories on how the Boat's void formed? No idea. Could you explain spontaneous parametric down conversion? I have a video on that Birdman tattoo. Yeah, I have a video on it. Go watch it. I talk about it in detail there. Do you think society is a simulation? No. I mean, it's a simulation in the sense that like humans are like making stuff up, but it's not a simulation in any other sense, really. What's your opinion on what happens after death? I don't think anything happens after death. I think that it's lights out. It's like what it was before you're born. Gödel's incompleteness theory effect on physics. I don't think it has any effect at all. Like at all. Could universes exist on the Planck length? Almost certainly not. Just because the geometric structure just breaks down there, so you couldn't really have anything there. Why are quantum mechanics so complicated? Because there's not a lot of intuition there. Does 1D and 2D actually exist in reality, or does it just describe 3D properties? Well, it depends on what you mean by like exist. Like there are, like you can, like are there one-dimensional or two-dimensional objects? Not really, no. There are things that behave approximately like one-dimensional or two-dimensional things. However, you can characterize things in a one or two-dimensional way, and that's useful. What method could detect dark matter properties given current technological limits? I don't know. I'm not a dark matter phenomenologist. There are a lot of experiments going on to try to detect particle dark matter, if that's what it is. If the Earth was flat, how thick and high would the ice hole need to be to hold the gallons of water? I don't know. I'd have to do that calculation. But it does seem like a fun question to answer. What did Neil deGrasse mean that wormholes could be connecting virtual particles? This is this idea called ER equals EPR. Or at least it's closely related to the ER equals EPR conjecture. I'd have to look into the details of the claim, but it seems like they're saying that, well, maybe this is a potential explanation for how we get entanglement or something like that. Does number theory have an effect on physics? It shows up occasionally. Opinion about Friedrich? Friedrich who? If we capture a photogram of reality, can we predict the future? Not really, because of quantum mechanics. Now, what you can do is you can predict all possible futures, but you can't predict which one you'll be in some sense. Although in some sense you'll be in all of them. AI says 7,000 feet high and half a mile thick. I wouldn't trust AI as far as I can throw it, and I'm not very strong. Is it possible that a unified theory doesn't exist? I don't think so. Well, okay, unified, no. Or unified, yes, but there will almost certainly be a theory of quantum gravity. What if when the Big Bang happened, everything that ever happened was established? That's called superdeterminism, or just determinism, and that's plausible. Do you have a favorite historical mathematician? Favorite historical mathematician? I don't know. I feel like, I mean, Noether probably gets a good win there, but also Aaron Fialkov is a rad dude who did my kind of stuff before I did it. But then there's also like Euler. Do you like all branches of physics? I don't really like StatMech, but I do appreciate that it has some very powerful results. Is the cosmological constant in jeopardy of being adjusted? It won't be adjusted, it just might not be a constant. Do you think the stacked universe theory thing is plausible? I don't know what that is. Would the Higgs field permeate the multiverse? I don't think there's a multiverse. What is your favorite quark and why? The top quark, because it's a big dude. When they say space-time bends, does it bend into something or is it more a figure of speech? No, it's an intrinsic curvature rather than extrinsic. So you can think of, there's kind of two kinds of curvature that turn out to be equivalent mathematically, but they have different kind of conceptual notions. One kind of curvature is where you have like a curved thing in a flat space. Like think a ball in flat three-dimensional space, non-curved three-dimensional space. So that has extrinsic curvature. However, you can also talk about curvature as just a difference or as just like a changing relationship of how you measure distances. And it turns out that these two notions are actually identical. Anytime that you have intrinsic curvature where the way that we measure distances are changing, you can talk about that in exactly the same way that you would talk about extrinsic curvature. So you could take that space, put it in something bigger where it inherits its distances from extrinsic curvature. So you could take that space, put it in something bigger where it inherits its distances from testing 1, 2, 3, testing. I know you have lag. I know. Okay, I just reset my Wi-Fi, so hopefully we're good. All right, sorry about that. Let's continue. So, can you please explain how people came up with quantum spin? Well, I think, I don't actually know the history, but I imagine that they thought that they were actually spinning initially. Why do they believe in strings? Well, because it's currently the only, not the only, but it's one of the only consistent models of quantum gravity. Is it likely black holes are not a singularity but a matter in a different state? That'd be my guess, but I don't know if it's likely. Are you a materialist? I'm a physicalist, so. What's your research topics? I do a lot of things, but mostly it's general relativity related, geometry related, those kinds of things. Are you self-taught? No, I went to university. Like I have a PhD in physics. Would you say you're in the top 1% of physicists? No. Is an orbit just any trajectory in proximity of a gravitational well greater than that of the object? In some sense, sort of, yeah. Are you taking requests? I will in a bit. If we were rotating along the Milky Way, couldn't we go the opposite way to reach the other star quicker? No. You'd have to kill off your tangential velocity first. So it's exactly as if you weren't rotating with it. Advice for pure math major? Challenges of real analysis? Advice? I don't know. This is the same advice I give to everybody. Go to ops hours. Are you like an average physicist? I don't know. It's really hard to say. I'm young, so it's really hard. I'm very early in my career. I'm only like 2.5, 3 years in, so it's hard to say. Thoughts on math and economics? It's cool. What majors were you? I did a math major and a physics major. What do you think about discretized spacetime? I think it's a neat idea. Is that only subject? What? Can a neutron star be a magnetar and a pulsar at the same time? I think so. But I'm not an astrophysicist, so take that with a grain of salt. Is there a species or bacteria that can survive in space? Like in hibernation, I think so, yeah. Was school hard? Not for me, but it might be for some people. What would a non-flat universe look like? Well, for example, if the universe were positively curved, spatially, if it had positive spatial curvature, that would mean that the universe, that you could go around in a circle and come back where you started. And triangles wouldn't have their angles adding up to 180 degrees, for example. Everywhere I look, it says the Big Crunch is impossible. Why do you use it as a point in debates? Well, everywhere you look hasn't updated their data, because the data that came out that I've been basing this off of is only 3 months old. Can you do physics grad school with a math plus engineering degree? Probably, yeah. Tardigrades aren't bacteria. It can't be because of quantum wave. What? What do you think of quantum immortality? I have a video on it. I think it's nonsense. What's a day job at your job look like? Lots of reading, some calculating, meetings, occasionally some writing, often bashing my head against the wall. Are you stating the Earth is flat? No, the Earth isn't flat. What? Why do they make physics majors that do labs in undergrad even if they want to be a theorist? Because you need to understand how experiments work. Even if you're going to be a theorist, you need to understand how experiments work, at least at a basic level. Wait, so the Big Crunch might be true? It might be. The DESI data at least changes the story a little bit. It opened up the possibility. Thoughts on geometric unity? I'm not going to read it until he submits it for peer review. Do you find yourself preferential to any philosophical metaphysical theories in your work? Not really. I mean, I'm a physicalist, so take that to mean what you will. Did you enjoy your math classes? Yeah. What is dark energy? It's hard to say. It might just be some like fundamental field that stores energy in the form of space-time volumes or something. It's really hard to say. What's your favorite physics fact? Probably that the faster you travel through space, the longer or the slower you travel through time. Videos on this new data on Big Crunch? Yeah, I have a video on it. It's in my cosmology tab somewhere. How long have you been a PhD? I've had my PhD for over 2 years. That's on the physics saying Terrence Howard has no chance of having his work peer reviewed. Yeah, he has no chance of having his work peer reviewed. It would just, well, I mean, he could submit it to a journal and then they'll just reject it because it's nonsense. Do you think dark matter is just error in physics? No. Does curved space encode the information of the stress that caused it? Yes. If you're a physicist, can you explain qualia? Yeah, well, I just think that qualia is the description, or is a description of what's happening in the brain. But that's not the topic for today. Favorite band in the moment? Probably Beast in Black. Can you talk on this new theory that made the fabric of space-time is made of black holes? I don't think it's a new theory. How long will it be until we look into the night sky and just see blackness? Like 20 billion years or something? I don't remember what the data is on that. Who's the best science communicator? In my opinion, it's Matt O'Dowd. Do you think it'll ever be possible to travel backwards in time? No, I don't think so. What do you think of the Joe Rogan and Terrence and Eric Weinstein? I didn't watch it, and I'm not going to because I'm not going to waste my time on it. If I submit a paper for review, will it actually be reviewed, right? Well, first it goes to the editor desk, and they will decide if it's worth reviewing. So they'll probably look at the title, and then maybe look at and first they're going to make sure that the abstract makes any sense. If the abstract doesn't make any sense, they're just going to toss it away. If they make it past the abstract and then they read it and they still think that it's nonsense, then they'll toss it away. Like, that's just how it works. Do you agree that consciousness is a separate entity to the brain? I think it lives in the brain. Does your wife help you with research? No, but she helps me with me. Do items, who is Eric Weinstein, a guy that used to be a physicist 30 years ago? Do items near a black hole travel faster than the speed of light? No, nothing can travel faster than the speed of light locally. Will you ever make a video explaining your research? Probably not, because it'd be outdated pretty quickly. How much algebra do you use in your physics? So much. Are quarks constantly being created around black holes? Probably not, no. Why is there more matter than antimatter? No one knows. That's one of the biggest open questions in physics right now. How much would take to humanity to harness the ability to bend spacetime for travel purposes? I don't know if that'll ever happen. In fact, I'd be surprised if it ever happened. Can you explain dark stars? Go watch the video that Neil deGrasse Tyson just put out on them. Like, just go watch those. Does decay happen slower for objects traveling near the speed of light? Yes. So you're saying Eric Weinstein has 30 years of experience on you? He hasn't published in 30 years. What does that mean? Well, I don't know, but think about what that might tell you. How manageable was the double major in undergrad? It was more manageable than you might think because there was a lot of overlap between the classes. Why do I understand physics better than algebra? Well, they're different things. Do you believe in a higher power? No, I don't. Why do protons not decay? Well, in some sense, they're the lightest baryon. So if baryon number is conserved, then they can't decay. But we don't know if the baryon number is conserved. Do you know anything about the great attractor? I have a video on it. My best guess is that it's just a galaxy, or it's just a big clump of galaxies that we can't see. It's just a big clump of galaxies that we can't see because our galaxy is in the way. Is set theory used in physics? Yeah, not so much, but yeah. What do you use your degree for? I mean, I work at a university. I do research. It's my job. Do gravitational waves travel at the speed of light? Yes, they travel at exactly the speed of light. Who hasn't published in 30 years? Eric Weinstein hasn't published in 30 years. What are tachyons? Tachyons are, it's a state of matter that's unstable. It basically describes when you have an unstable equilibrium rather than a stable equilibrium. What would happen if we weaponized the Hadron Collider? You couldn't. How would you weaponize that? Why do people think NASA is lying? Because they haven't thought too much. Do you think the universe is deterministic? Sort of, in like a quantum way. Since you're moving back to the US, does that mean that's your home campus? I don't know what you mean. I mean, like, I don't have a job in the US yet, but I hope to find one. Does the BGB theorem point to a creator? No, I don't think so. It just points to, the BGB theorem is just a statement that, this is Borg-Guth-Vilenkin. The BGB theorem, oh, thank you for the sunglasses, or the glasses, by the way. The BGB theorem states that if on average throughout the entirety of the universe's history, or the entirety of the universe's like existence, including past and future, if the average size change is expansion rather than contraction, if it's on average expanding, and if general relativity is true at all scales, then there's a beginning. But we don't know if both of those things are true. We don't know if the universe will start to recollapse at some point in the future. We also don't know if general relativity is valid at all scales. Do you think the speed of light what? Do you think many worlds interpretation is valid? Yeah, I do. He convinced me. Sean Carroll convinced me. Would you leave TikTok for a US job? What do you mean leave TikTok? Like what? I don't know why. Like if it gets banned there, I might leave TikTok anyway. But yes. I wouldn't stop doing science communication though. Thank you for the garland. Why is it so difficult to travel in space when we are made of the same materials? Well, it's difficult. It's really not that difficult. It's the same way on Earth as on space. It's just on Earth you can use friction to push you. At what scale does physics change from the smallest to the largest? It's not like a hard cutoff. But like it's something on like the order of molecules is where you'll start to see classical behavior. What convinced you of the many worlds interpretation? It just has the fewest assumptions of any of the interpretations. What does the Copenhagen interpretation state? That when you do a measurement, the wave function collapses because of quantum decoherence. But they don't actually tell us what collapse is. So you're not a US? No, I'm a US citizen. How long until we figure out what's inside a black hole? I don't know. What's the BGB theorem? Borg-Guth-Vilenkin theorem. And I already said what it is. Can you explain the Higgs field? Yeah, the Higgs field is something like, it's like molasses. The faster you, or if you try to travel through it and the molasses is sticking to your skin, you'll slow down. And so things try to travel at the speed of light, but they interact with the molasses, and so they get slowed down. And the only things that can move slower than the speed of light are things with mass. So the Higgs field gives things mass. Do you think wormholes are possible? I don't think so, no. Does dark matter increase as the universe expands? No, dark energy does. Can you explain why flat Earth is true? It's not true. Why would he go to the US? Because that's where my wife wants to live, and that's where I want to go back to. So that's why I'm going to go back to the US. Why is sound slower than light? Well, because sound is a mechanical wave. It relies on information being passed from one atom to another when they bounce into each other. And that takes time. Can physicists do chemistry? I mean, to a certain extent, but probably not. Does the Higgs field give mass to atoms, or does it only give mass to free particles? It only gives mass to the fundamental particles of our universe. So protons, or not even protons, quarks and leptons. Where are you based now? I'm in the Czech Republic. What's the difference between particle theory and QFT? Particle theory is like a less modern version of QFT. Will you vote in 2024? Yeah, of course. I could go to any country, but my family is in the US. Thoughts on VOR? I think that he is deceptive quite frequently in his videos. He's always pleasant to talk to. Not for me, but everyone else. Why does matter gravitate towards spherical shapes? Because that's the shape that allows for the balancing of all forces in all directions. I'm going to bring up a guest. So let's bring up Kinor.
Hi.
Kinor, how's it going?
Not bad. I have just a simple question. Do we know anything about dark matter or dark energy? At least, do we know they really exist?
We do know that dark matter exists, in the sense that all of the data is pointing to it existing. there are multiple different effects that only make sense if you take into account dark matter. Dark energy is a little bit trickier, in that dark energy is sort of just like a phenomenon rather than like something. It's like it's something is causing the universe to expand faster and faster. We don't know what it is, but according to the equations that we have, that would require some sort of energy content in our universe that is spread throughout the entire universe evenly. That's why we think dark energy is a thing. Now, what that is, nobody has any idea. I mean, some people have guesses, but nothing certain.
And except mathematics, we don't have any proof, right, about dark matter or dark energy.
No. What do you mean? Sorry, what was the first part? Something about mathematics?
Yeah, we don't have any experience, so we were not able to prove that the dark matter exists. So we know that we need it, but in the future we can find completely something different is the cause of these gravity differences, right?
Possibility, but it's basically all of the other models have been ruled out, and dark matter makes good predictions. So dark matter being some sort of substance that makes good predictions, which means that it's the best model we currently have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course. All right, I'm going to answer chat questions for a bit, and then I'll go back to, I'll bring up another guest in a little bit. Galactogenesis explain why there's more matter than antimatter? I mean, no, not as of yet. What's the difference between a photon and an electron? A photon is light, an electron is just like a charged particle. It's what orbits around an atom. What causes a radioactive ion to release an alpha particle? I feel like I've been going in circles. Yeah, so roughly the idea is that in an atomic nucleus, in an ion, you have forces trying to hold it together. This is the strong nuclear force. And you have forces trying to push it apart because you have a whole bunch of positively charged things in a small area that are trying to push apart. So when alpha decay happens, the quantum jiggling nucleus separates just far enough that the strong nuclear force is too weak to hold it together, and a little bit of matter from the nucleus is shot off from the protons, from the other protons. Does kinetic energy exist? I mean, it exists in that it's a numerical quantity that's conserved in many situations. Do you have any recommendations for resources to learn renormalization in QFT? It is very hard, and I haven't seen any good treatments of it. And I don't honestly, my grasp of it is probably pretty rudimentary compared to people who actually do theoretical QCD or weak interaction calculations. However, I do have a list of textbooks that I like to keep that I've used as references in the past for normalization. So let me just pull up my list of textbooks really quick. I think Weinberg actually has a pretty good treatment, if I remember correctly. And I think Z does as well, ZEE. So try those two textbooks. That might do you well. What does dark matter do that's beneficial to the universe? Things don't have to be beneficial. Things just exist sometimes. Do you think the universe will die or just... No, I don't think it will. Why was more matter produced than antimatter? Nobody knows. Hey, Mr. Earth Guy. Does pole shifts possibly happen? Sure, it happens all the time. Please debate Darth Dawkins. I believe you're the only one who can debate him. I've debated him before. He ran away like a little baby, and then he went on an ableist rant and then got banned. What are your thoughts on Hubble's strong evidence for intermediate mass black hole and Omega Centauri? That seems cool. I don't have thoughts on it. It's not my area, but it seems cool. Gravity was first described as a force field, then GR came. Is a similar thing possible for EM fields? Yes, in fact, it was done in the 1950s with QED. How would you describe a 5D other than just another spatial dimension? That's how I would describe it. Please explain volts in the most comprehensible way. So volts are to electricity as pressure is to the flow of water. Do you know the time frame of pole shifts? I think it's every 20, or it's on the order of every 10,000 years or something. What field of physics do you think will win the next Nobel? I don't know. It's impossible to predict these things. Could quantum fluctuations potentially be the cause of the universe? Possibly, but I don't think so. Do you think we can split our universe with the CERN device? And no, of course not. Thoughts on Bell's theorem? It's cool. Like what? It's a neat result that proves our. Gosh darn it! It's a neat result that proves that our universe is not fundamentally classical. 200 to 300k years for pole shifts. Okay, yeah, I stand corrected. It's not on the order of every 10,000. It's every 200 to 300,000 years. If you could go faster than light, would Lorentz contraction appear to reverse? If you can go faster than light, then special relativity is wrong, so you shouldn't believe anything that it says about the universe. How do qubits work and how are they different from regular bits? Qubits can just take on any combination of 0 and 1 simultaneously. Thought that would be relevant to GR research. Well, that's like observational stuff, but like I do very mathematical relativity. Best mindset for a newbie to approach physics? Don't assume anything. Do you believe string theory is true? No, not really. What's your general argument against simulation theory? That there's no evidence for it, and that it makes no predictable claims, and we're either in the first or the last, and we don't even know if it's possible to make a simulation of a universe, so it seems more likely that we're in the first. Can you explain what a muon is? Yeah, a muon is just a fat electron. Are you a theoretical physicist? If yes, what's your research on? I'm a mathematical physicist. So I do more mathematics things than I do more math than theoretical physicists do. But my research is on generally like mathematical relativity and like geometry, and I dabble in quantum gravity, like very, very light dabbling. Why does the speed of an object have an effect on time dilation? Yeah, so the way that I always phrase this is you travel through space-time at a fixed rate, which means that if you travel through space faster, you travel through time slower. What do you think about ER equals EPR? I don't think about it a lot. What have you published? I have like 8 publications in various journals. Who's your favorite physicist other than yourself? Einstein. Easily Einstein. Ask those physicists who were silenced why they were silenced. Oh, you can't, they aren't alive. Which physicists were silenced? What's the difference between philosophical concept of nothing and the physics version? There isn't really a physics version. You think Einstein could have invented refrigerators without Newton's empirical law of cooling? Hey, but he did it, okay, without moving parts. How can 2 particles be affected the same way that are light years apart? Well, because they're not 2 distinct things. They're one thing that happens to be spread out. Least-Molin's cosmological natural selection and the holographic principle. I don't buy it because it means that you have to be able to, you have to explain how you have a universe inside a black hole. Are you a materialist and idealist? I'm a physicalist. Do neutrinos flow through everything? Yes, much like the force. Does Moore's law still apply today? I don't know. I'm not an electrical engineer. Do you like Nikola Tesla and his work? I mean, he did some cool stuff, but he's not like a... Like, he invented like a few useful things. That's about it. Could there have been a quantum vacuum before the Big Bang? I don't think so. But it depends on what you mean by that. Is mathematics invented or discovered? I would say it's invented, but other people disagree. Are any theoretical ways to test for when the worlds and many worlds possibly merge? For when they do? Who's to say? I'm sure that, well, to test. Probably not. The thing is when the worlds split, the probability of them coming back together or them interfering is like, we're talking like 10 to the 10 to the 10 to the 10 to the like, with like a huge tower of tens. What's your opinion on physicalism? I'm a physicalist. What was the Big Bang? Was it just an expansion of matter in the universe? The Big Bang was the expansion of space-time, or the expansion of space in time. It was the very early expansion of space in time. What's the difference between quasars and stars? Quasars are quasi-stellar. What does quasar stand for again? Quasars are really bright radio source, basically. And it's very, very far away, and it's like from a galactic core. But a star is just a star. Where does everything go that goes into a black hole? My suspicion is that it just kind of stays in there and just hangs out. So the Higgs field exists everywhere all the time. Does the the electromagnetic field exists everywhere all the time. Is there anything in physics that's anti-entropic? No, but talking about the entropy of gravity is very tricky because it has a negative heat capacity. Is there a cutoff point when the Big Bang ended? No, it's still going. It's still banging. A metal box that is grounded and you touch it. Are you and the ground wire connected in parallel? Well, it depends on... So, no, because you have more resistance. But it depends on what approximations you're willing to make. Would be able to exist gaseous pressure without container? If by container you mean any force, then yeah, sure. Most beautiful idea in physics? Covariance to me. Just general coordinate covariance. Why do slinkies float until they collapse instead of all falling at once? You're talking about when they... So when you drop the top, the middle is still pulling the bottom up, and it exactly cancels out the force. Would we ever make it to Alpha Centauri? I really hope so. Are mining's influence disruption of the magnetic field protection of Earth? No, I don't think so. Non-equilibrium thermodynamics in layman's terms? No. No. Non-equilibrium thermodynamics is really tricky because you can't use all the tricks that you would like to use for thermodynamics. It's actually not something I'm even that familiar with. I just know that it's really hard to usefully talk about. What do you think caused the Big Bang? I think that there was a previous crunch that caused the Big Bang. How would breakthrough starshot be possible? With big-ass lasers. Maxwell v. Feynman, who wins? Maxwell. If you could pick another field to research, what would you pick? Mathematics. But that's cheating. I think quasars might have been named like pulsars. You might be thinking of quasi-stellar objects. Yeah, isn't that what quasars stand for? How to produce concentrated beam of infrared light with a laser. What did you major in your master, and what was your PhD thesis about? Well, so in the US at least, you can go straight from undergrad to your PhD, and you kind of just get your master's along the way, and that's what I did. So I didn't really have like a master's project, and my PhD thesis was about conformal hypersurface geometry. Why do we need a Big Bang? Why can't the universe exist without a beginning? Well, we don't need a Big Bang, but it happened. Do you think you would ever start a podcast? Who knows these days? Everybody starts a podcast. But I don't plan on it, not anytime soon. What discovery would tell us that the number of worlds is infinite or size of the Hilbert space? That is a very hard question to answer. I don't know if I don't even know how we would begin to answer that question. Can you calculate the color of an object based on configuration? Do you mean like configuration of like the electrons? In principle, you can, but it's very, very hard. Is there any possible way of neutralizing radiation? Yeah, just put a big brick of lead between you and it. All right, I'm going to bring up a guest. Remember, subscribers get first dibs, so consider subscribing because that's a cool way to ask your questions. Juno, how's it going?
Hi. I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, I'm just worried my Bluetooth earbuds aren't the best. But okay. I want to ask about time.
Okay.
And this is my first time going as a guest on live, so I might be nervous. But so in relativity, is time just like an abstraction, or does the past really exist?
In relativity, time is akin to space. So in whatever sense you think space exists, so does time.
Okay. So this is like I have a hard time grasping this because if I think about time in a like philosophical sense, that time is just change, then it doesn't really make sense to me.
Okay, but position is
does the past exist?
Space is just look. So physics doesn't care about the philosophical musings of what the past is and what time is. We describe things in a mathematical way, and then we have an interpretation of that mathematics. So, like in the case of relativity, we describe space-time as a four-dimensional manifold with a Lorentzian signature. The Lorentzian signature means that it has a time-like piece and a space-like piece, and that is like the mathematical model that makes good predictions. So, if you want to ascribe ontology to the mathematics of that, then you can, but it's not really like the business of physics to think about like the philosophy of like what is time and all of that.
Okay, that's very helpful because I actually wanted to ask about that as well. Like, how much of physics is this sort of mathematical, kind of arbitrary in regards to the ontology? It seems like it's that there's a lot of it that's just a model that gives good predictions, and then you can like look at it and make some philosophical claims about it. What's the word?
Yeah.
Well, anyways,
that's roughly the business. That's roughly my position, namely that you do the physics, and then once the physics is good, once it's set in stone and you've figured out what you're talking about, then you can start talking about the philosophy of those things.
Right.
But we don't even know what space is yet. We don't know if space is emergent or any of that stuff. So it's really hard to talk about like the ontological nature of space and time if we don't have a final theory of what space is. So.
Right. So your position is kind of like you kind of separate the physics and the philosophy, at least in this regard.
I separate them when we don't have a good theory of physics that the philosophy can influence or that the philosophy can draw from. I think that there is a notion that you can talk about philosophy with regards to like quantum mechanics, because quantum mechanics is pretty much done, right? It's not done, but like it's believed to be like the theory of how our universe works. So you can talk about like the philosophy of quantum mechanics and things like that. But relativity is no one thinks relativity is done because it doesn't play well with quantum mechanics. So that's why I'm very agnostic about what time even is, things like that.
Right. That's very helpful. Give me a sec. I have a list of questions, so I'll see if I have some extra question, or is it allowed?
Yeah, I'll give you one or two more. Thank you for the train, Bigga.
Okay, so I guess this was all my questions for now. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Of course. Have a good one. All right, I'm going to go back to answering chat for a bit, and then we'll move on. We'll keep going. Is physics based all on theory? No, it's based on experiment. The theory explains the experiment. If space and time can be influenced without a person negatively experience the attempt. I'm so confused by that question. Opinions on string theory. I'm not convinced it's the correct theory of everything. I'd be happy to be wrong, but I'm just not convinced. Can you power a ship with nukes like three-body problem? Yeah, sure. It's not very practical, but sure. If there could be a graviton, could there be particles for other forces? There are particles for other forces. The photon is a particle for the electromagnetic force, for example. Tell us an interesting physics fact that is applied to medicine physiology. I don't know anything about medicine or physiology. Does water drain faster through a whirlpool or just static? I think through a whirlpool. Did you debate that Darth Dawkins guy? Yeah, I did. Just not yesterday. I debated him a few months ago, but he never came back. How does time work in the quantum world? It's just an arrow, a straight arrow. What did you mean with Big Crunch about the Big Bang? Yeah, I think that the universe, our Big Bang, came from a previous universe's Big Crunch. That's my current mental model. If I'm wrong, but that seems to align with the current data that we have, and it seems to make, it's a satisfying way of thinking about the universe. Is mathematics incomplete? In a sense, I guess, yeah. What is a big crunch? A universe. So right now we're expanding. The universe could also be recollapsing, and when it collapses to a very, very small point, and that's a crunch. Do mathematicians with physicists? Yes. Question for rebutting flurfers: is experimentation needed for science, or just observation is needed? You just need some way to test your hypothesis. That's all. If that's often, it can be very well done with experiments, but if you can test your hypothesis by looking for new observations, that's enough. Or just reminded me of gluons. Does that mean that they're the strong? Yeah, gluons are the strong nuclear force particle. Yep. Does physics ever intertwine with religion make sense? Only insofar as it tells religions when they're wrong. Do objects ever cross an event horizon, or does it happen in the infinite future? Yeah, they do. Oh, for a distant observer? Yeah, it happens in the infinite future. So photon is both electromagnetic and light. Light is electromagnetism. Any experiments that tested if I'm moving 1 meter in one spatial direction takes the same energy as others? I doubt that that's ever been tested. Why does spontaneous parametric down conversion only work through nonlinear optical properties? Because that's what spontaneous parametric down conversion is. It's an example of nonlinear optics. Linear optics doesn't change the frequency of waves because linear optics just have a linear dispersion relation. Opinions on strangelets? Don't be worried about them. I just wouldn't worry too much. Are we just waves according to the wave-particle dualism? We are just waves, but not because wave-particle duality is true, because wave-particle duality is false and everything is waves. Does current actually flow? Sure. Could the universe be simultaneously expanding and collapsing in different places far away? Not likely, to me anyway. What evidence do we have of a big crunch? Well, what we do have evidence for, very, very tentative recent evidence, is that the acceleration of our universe seems to be decreasing. So if you kind of follow that through to its logical conclusion, that would mean that the acceleration would stop, it would start to decelerate, it would start to slow down, and then eventually it would recollapse. But that's just, it's very tentative. But it's at least now in the realm of possibility. Why do some people not believe in gravity? Because they're flat earthers. That's why. Could the crunch be a lot sooner than we thought? Well, it depends on what model you're using for abstraction, but no, it's not going to be any time in your lifetime. So it's a difficult subject for you to understand being a doctor physicist. I don't know. I'm convinced it's like, I don't know, probably algebraic number theory or something. Can we derive classical physics from quantum mechanics? Sort of, using the Ehrenfest theorem, but not really. How long would it take the universe to collapse? This is very model dependent. However, it could be like if it's just a linear decrease in expansion or in acceleration rate, then you could have like 40 billion years or something like that. Why does Brian the physicist say that quantum world proves of instant communication wormholes? I don't know what you're talking about. At one point, gravity wasn't proven, so it's possible things like chi is still unexplained. How many genders are there? At least 2. Would you ever introduce to either a No, I've never met any sociopaths or psychopaths, I don't think. What do you think about megapoint theory? It sounds like nonsense. What if the crunch happened tomorrow, and how will all the billionaires be able to avoid their own demise? They won't. Who do you think won, Drake or Kendrick? I didn't pay attention to that at all. Did you hear Neil Tyson said something could be connected to everybody keeps saying this. I have no idea what you're talking about. Thoughts on emergent gravity? Depends on what kind of emergent you think. What's a megapoint theory? I have no idea. You just read the chi question without answering it? Yeah, because it's woo, it's nonsense. Like you could just say, yeah, this could be it's like people thought gravity wasn't real at some point, so maybe this thing that's not real could also be real. All right, let me bring up a guest. Remember, subscribers get first dibs. Paradox, how's it going?
Good, and you?
I'm doing all right. What questions you got for me?
If there's one natural law you would be able to be had the ability to bend or alter, which one would you choose?
That's a good question. Probably the Einstein field equations. Probably change the. In some sense, it's like the equivalent, like the relativistic equivalent of the law of gravitation.
Yeah, it's sorry, I don't even know what you just said. What is that?
I'd like to bend the law of gravity.
Gravity. Well, we have rooms and settings where we can already change that, right?
No.
No?
No.
Well, at least you can experience different gravity by going out of space, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think it's possible if questions like these are risen in the scientific community where we could like create things within Earth to be able to incorporate these changes?
Well, it wouldn't be a law. It wouldn't be a law of physics if you could change it.
No. Well, that's true. Well, I mean like creating mankind, like things that would be able to allow us to mimic these other, alter like things that would be possible on other planets and stuff.
I mean, we kind of already can. Like, you can go into like a 0G room, or rather, you can ride on a 0G plane where they like take a nosedive and then you're like in 0G for 45 seconds or something.
Well, but earlier you said no, there isn't. And also, more
Well,
importantly...
yeah, because that's not a room. That's like an airplane. And we're not turning off gravity. You're just falling.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. But I have a little bit more typical TikTok question.
Sure.
In your, I don't know what to say, thoughts, or a belief, I guess, what do you think all the materials, or I don't even know what matter rather, that exists I was listening to you for a few where you were saying that I think it's very common now what people say of how the universe began or was it eternal. It's very common where I hear people saying that it's like a loop, right? Or not a loop, or like more of it expands and then it collapses and then it's right, and it starts again. But what I'm asking is, where did the material, the matter that is being used, like it's like recycling, right? But like to recycle something, it was, if you look at the process, it was created, it was used, then it was processed again, and it was recycled. But where did that materials originate from?
Well, under this model, the expansion and recollapse model, it's always been there. So it didn't need to come from anywhere. It just always existed.
Oh, hi, Sophie. Okay, so the word created, I think is what you're saying we should avoid, at least in this.
Well, because there's no beginning. There's no...
Wait. Okay, there was no beginning for this creation. But the matter that had no beginning necessarily, right? Would you say it's part of within this reality, right? Within the things that we observe?
Sure.
Okay. Can you give me an example of anything else but the universe itself that had no cause or an origin to just exist?
I don't know, like electrons.
You said electrons?
Mm-hmm.
Electrons, you mean electrons, are you referring to quantum theory where they just pop to existence?
No, I'm just referring to the electrons that have existed for as long as the universe has existed.
Did you just give me an example of the material or the matter that we were referring to that would be consistent to the universe?
Well, yeah, I gave you an example of something in the universe that seems to have always existed.
Which is the elements of the universe.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but I was asking you something other than the topic you were talking about that didn't have a start, that just comes to existence.
So wait a minute. So you want me to give you an example of something that's not in the universe?
No, something. Okay, wait. Of course, something that's in the universe, but not what.
So then I gave you an example. Look, so
wait,
Paradox, today is not a debate live.
Okay. Okay.
So I answered your question. Any other questions you got?
One last one. Yes. Last question would be, actually, you know what? I feel like my vibe did change, but thank you for answering the question. I appreciate it, Doctor. Bye-bye.
Take care. Anyway, let's go back to answering chat for a little bit, and then I'll bring up another guest. Can you speak on entanglement and wormholes? No, I can't, because I have no idea what anybody's talking about, because I haven't seen the thing that you're talking about. Is parallel universe about different frequency? No. Can electron tunneling be a problem for transistors in the future? Yes, absolutely. In fact, it's a problem now. The Earth is really spinning. Why am I not dizzy all the time? Fair. Earth is flat, y'all. Can you explain more on what you mean by causation isn't fundamental? Yeah, it's just not what physicists think about when we're trying to come up with models. The idea is just like, look, you have a sequence of states that are connected by laws. And because the future state is directly the future state, like you can predict the past state from the future state and vice versa. So there's not really like a notion of like the past state is like more primal than the future state. Like they're both equally dependent on each other. That's like a butchering of what I'm trying to convey, but that's roughly the idea. What do you think of the news that Earth doesn't orbit the sun? That seems like a wild claim. Are white holes real? No, I don't think so. Are you on the spectrum? Probably. Are you aware of the askaphysicist.com used to visit it? No, I haven't. I'm not aware of that. How do LNO crystals have the ability to change properties? I don't know what LNO crystals are. The Earth isn't trapezoidal. Why are there still trapezoids? True. Do you agree with Eric Weinstein that string theory is a waste of time? No, I don't. I think he's dumb for saying that. What inspired you to study physics? Black holes. Linear optical crystals. Okay, now that I have context. Yeah, I don't know anything about linear optical crystals. Can't comment on it. Is heliocentric model wrong? No. It's a good model. What's the point of studying string theory? To learn more about string theory? Learn more about quantum gravity? If the universe goes through expansion and contraction, wouldn't energy be lost? Well, energy is currently being gained because the universe is expanding. Why would energy be, and then it'll be lost when it contracts, and then it'll be gained when it expands. Is Eric Weinstein a charlatan? Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, he's a little bit of a charlatan. What is electron tunneling and why is it a problem? It's not a problem. Electron tunneling is just when particles quantum tunnel, when they pass through a barrier that they shouldn't be able to pass through classically. Can you share something interesting about black holes you learned? Well, they have this, conjecturally, they have this property called ring down, meaning that if you throw something in, their event horizon will wibble wobble a little bit, but it'll give it enough time and it'll settle back down to a nice, perfectly spherical shape. Oh, I'm way behind. Sorry. If we discovered quantum gravity, would relativity become obsolete? No, absolutely not. It would just become an ineffective field theory. That's kind of what it is now. Do you think the universe will recollapse at the same rate it expands? Well, the expansion rate is changing, so yeah, I suspect the recollapse rate will change as well. Is the universe expanding uniformly in all directions? It seems to be, but it's a good question. What if the history of every atom is recorded in the frequency of the space between the... I don't know what that question means. Do you agree with the double slit experiment? It's an experiment. There's nothing to disagree with. Starting a physics degree this October. Any tips? Go to office hours. They will love you. Go to office hours. Does dark energy have negative pressure? Yes, it does. And I have a video on it that hopefully, that might clear it up. It should be in my cosmology playlist, I think, or my general relativity playlist, one of those two. Is the universe spherical in shape? No, the observable universe is shaped like a ball, but the universe itself, probably not spherical. How would the universe collapse into itself? Gravity. Gravity pulls things together. What's a physicist? Somebody who studies physics, which is the science of the natural world that describes the fundamental motion and dynamics of particles and matter in general. What is negative pressure? It's outward pushing. Can you measure the speed of dark? It doesn't have a speed. It's not a thing. Do you think space is a different geometry than we normally think of it as? No. At least at the large scales, no. Can you explain the double slit experiment and its meaning? Yeah, so the double slit experiment, gosh darn it. So the double slit experiment is roughly the idea that, well, it was an experiment where it's been done a lot, but it's like a thought experiment. Basically, you can send waves through two slits and they'll interfere with each other, just like water waves would interfere with each other. You'll have peaks and troughs on the other side of the two slits. However, if you then observe or measure which slit the wave is going through, it won't look like peaks and troughs anymore. And that's because to observe or measure it is to interact with it, and you'll change the behavior. Isn't the universe technically stretching, not expanding? Those are roughly synonyms. Did physics improve your subjective assessment of your logic and reasoning? I don't know, probably. Has anything been witnessed going to a black hole? I think so. I think we witnessed something get torn up a while ago, like a year or two ago. How do you feel about simulation theory? I think it's religion for tech bros. Does the universe only appear flat because we only see a small part of it? Could be. Could very well be. The media are claiming NASA says the very center of the Earth orbits isn't within the sun. Thoughts? It's still a heliocentric model. Do you agree that clear night skies were pre-modern social media? Yeah, maybe. Have you ever heard a promising argument for the flat Earth theory? No. Not at all. Zero. There are none of them. What makes the universe expand? Well, some of it is momentum, meaning there was a very fast expansion in the Big Bang, which flung stuff out, causing the universe to expand. And then there's this thing called dark energy, which seems to be accelerating the expansion that we don't know the cause of. Why is it so hard to unify gravity with the other forces? When you try to write down a quantum theory of gravity, none of the math works. And it provably doesn't work. So you have to come up with a new paradigm to talk about the quantum behavior of gravity, which people are working on. That's what strings are about. But it doesn't seem to work perfectly. Does the universe expand faster near the edge and slower in the center? There is no center as far as we can tell. How well do we know if we're in a galaxy doing... I don't know what the question means. Do you think AI could have consciousness if it replicated a human brain? Yeah, I think so. Graviton was probably spin too, though, right? Yes. You mentioned black holes. How can an infinite density exist outside algorithms and computer systems? I don't think that they're infinitely dense at the center. I just think that they're very, very dense. If it has negative pressure, can we use dark energy? You can't use dark energy for anything because it's uniformly spread out. Why is Tachanka so thick? Base Tachanka pilled. I was a Tachanka main back in the good old days. Stephen Holzner, a good PhD to follow. I have no idea who that is. Can you explain the Pauli exclusion principle? Yeah, roughly. So there are two types of particles. There's bosons and fermions. Fermions are matter particles. It's what makes up stuff. These are things like electrons, protons. And it turns out one of the weird quantum properties of fermions, and you can prove this mathematically, is that if you swap two fermions, it has to give you the exact same state, except mathematically you need a minus sign. Your description of the state will acquire a minus sign if you swap them. Bree, thank you for the galaxy. That's huge. So, but now imagine that you have two electrons in the same state. Well, if you swap them, they're still in the same state, but now you have a minus sign. So the only state that is the same as its negative is 0. And what that means is that there is no state where two fermions are in the same quantum state. It's impossible to have two fermions in the same quantum state, because that would have a quantum state of 0, like mathematically. And so what that means is that if you have an electron, say, in one quantum state, then it excludes any other electrons from being in that same quantum state. Thank you for the galaxy again. What's your favorite video game as a child? I played so much RuneScape. So much. Is plasma sentient similar to like plant? I don't think so, no. What are quantums? Quantums aren't a thing. We say quantum when referring to like really, really small things or really, really discrete things. What do you think about the EM drive? It's a hoax. Does QM have a concept of pure negativity and completeness or void? No. Past the degeneracy pressure, what's your hypothesis of what stops complete collapse? I have no idea. By the way, new subscriber, thank you. Thank you for the subscription. Remember, subscribers get first dibs on Ask a Physicist Day. Also, if we get to 500 subscribers, I'll take you with me to Prague. Like, I'll take you on a train. I will like buy all of the tickets in a certain cabin on a train, and then I'll just talk to you on the 3-hour train ride to Prague. It'll be awesome. So let's get to 500 subscribers. You had your PhD visa and got a resubmit verdict. Congrats. That's better than fail. Is it theoretically possible to predict the future accurately if we know all such laws? In some sense, yes. What makes an atom? An atom is something that has protons and electrons bound together. Tickets from where to where? From where I live to Prague. I'm not going to physically take you with me. I'm just going to do a live stream while on the train, and then I'll take you around Prague with me. Why must things have gravity? Well, I mean, they don't have to, but they do. Thermonuclear versus nuclear. They're both bombs. Like, I don't know what the question is. Luna, thank you for the glasses. Can you explain why observing something can change its outcome? Because observing requires interaction, and interaction, like, so the way that we observe things, like at the quantum scale, is we like bounce light particles off of them. Like that's what it means to see something. You're seeing light particles bouncing off something, and it's going into your eye. So if you want to observe something, you have to like fire photons at it to bounce off the stuff and then go into your detector. But if you're doing something to it, then you're interacting with it, and then you end up changing the behavior. Do you know when Ian will go on live again? I don't. Am I Ian's keeper? Why does space have 3 dimensions? We don't know, but it seems to be the most stable number of dimensions. The metric of space generates covariant components of a given vector. What does this mean? All it means is that because the metric takes in 2 vectors and spits out a distance, or spits out a number, you can apply the metric to one vector, and you can treat that as an operator acting on other vectors. And the dual of a vector is a covariant vector, or a covector. That's all it means. Do you think we've hit a wall with new revolutionizing physics? No, not at all. Is it possible to completely identify complete hindsight of the past? I don't know what that means. Why does observation have an effect? I just explained that. Can space and time be separated? I mean, in some sense, yeah, but they're still like 2 sides of the same coin. Do you think cryosleep is possible? Not right now. What's the strongest intermolecular forces of attraction? I don't know. I'm not a chemist. Does Heisenberg principle still apply if we find methods of observation that doesn't involve photons? Yes. Heisenberg is not a technology issue. Have you ever had a eureka moment while doing something totally mundane? I have a lot of my best ideas in the shower, completely unironically. What book are you currently reading, or have last read? I don't read books anymore. I wish I did, but I don't. I spend a lot of my days reading physics papers. I spend a lot of my days reading, like doing research for my videos. I just don't have time. I just don't read. I wish I did, kind of, but I don't. All right, let's take on another guest.
What's up?
Bad mofos. How's it going?
Oh, how's it going, man? So I got some like black hole questions for you.
Sure.
Okay, so first of all, there's like I think I've seen like Neil deGrasse or someone say that like for a distant observer, it takes an infinite amount of time for like let's say you and me went to like the edge of a black hole and I dove in.
Yep.
And like so it's gonna take forever for you to see me cross.
Yes.
Well, like how does a black hole get massive then since I never crossed?
Well,
For
you do cross from your perspective.
But for you,
But from my perspective, you just get smeared out along the edge.
but do I actually cross?
Not from my perspective, no.
But then from your perspective, the black hole gets bigger.
Yeah. But you can like it gets bigger whether or not, like, if you smear it out along the edge, that also makes a black hole bigger. It still contributes to the mass. It still contributes to the gravity because that mass is just spread out along the edge rather than in the center. But it doesn't matter where it is. If you're outside of it, the gravity still has the same effect.
Okay. So like if you could detect like because I know like the light is getting redshifted, so that's why you don't see me anymore. But if you had like super like precise instrument, were you able to always see me? If you could like detect my photons through the redshift.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a practical implication in that as you get closer and closer, your photons will redshift so that their wavelength is it's larger than the observable universe. In which case, you can never detect those.
Oh, holy fuck! Okay.
Because like the wavelength would be like 80 or like 100 billion light years across. It would just look like a static electric field and a static magnetic field at that point. And you couldn't measure that.
That's so crazy, man. They look like glitches and bugs of the universe. These black holes.
Yeah, they are kind of weird, aren't they? That's what got me into this. So that's how I ended up in physics.
That's so cool. Okay, I got one last question, and that's like that Hawking radiation thingy. So I've heard that like on the edge of the black hole, I know that like particle kind of like spawn or like there's like fluctuations in the fields where it's like particles and antiparticles will create and annihilate, and if it's at the edge, then one will get into the black hole and the other would get shoot out, and that's kind of the idea behind Hawking radiation. Am I? Nah.
That's the explanation that Hawking gave, but he did a disservice by explaining it that way because that's not the calculation he actually did.
Okay, because that doesn't make sense. What if the massive particle, or not the antiparticle, gets in? Then it gets bigger. Like
and it doesn't even have to do with the. It's not matter and antimatter. That's the thing. It's not like the antimatter is like the negative particle. It's that you have a positive energy particle and a negative energy particle, and the negative energy particle falls in. But that's not really what happens. Really, all that's happening is that because the gravitational field is so strong, the entire quantum vacuum is kind of shifted. It's like shifted to a relative to the distant observer. It's shifted to like a slightly higher temperature. And so, like if you're a distant observer, it looks like because of this strong gravitational field that it's like slightly warm. The quantum vacuum. I want to rephrase that. The quantum vacuum, as observed by a distant observer, looks like the quantum vacuum near a black hole, as observed by a distant observer, doesn't look like a quantum vacuum. It looks like a slightly warmer vacuum that has some more particles in it.
Like it has some energy, and like that's the radiation.
And so because it looks like it's slightly warmer nearby, a distant observer will see energy being radiated from it.
Okay, but it's
in
just
the same way that like a hot thing radiates energy.
And it's just a property of the space between.
It's a property of the gravitation. In fact, you can actually calculate the Hawking radiation contributions extend much past the event horizon. In fact, it all comes from past the event horizon, but it's not from right next to the event horizon. It's like out to like 5 radii of the event horizon or so is where like the most of it comes from.
Okay, can I have like one more follow-up question?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So like, how does that? Because I know that that's proposed as a solution to like the black hole information paradox, but everything happens at that surface, right, close to the event horizon, and everything that have fallen in is at the center of the black hole. How is any information getting from it?
Well, that's the question. We don't actually know what happens to the stuff at the black hole. Is it vaporized by a firewall? Is it is it entangled with stuff on the boundary? Is it duplicated and then the stuff on the boundary is emitted and the stuff in the center is deleted? Like it's really, really hard to say.
Gotcha. Man, I wish I could live 2,000 years from now. They would probably figure a lot
I
of this
know.
stuff out.
I know. I think about that all the time.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Doc. Thank you so much.
Of course. Take care.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to answering some questions from chat. Did you watch the Joe Rogan episode with Weinstein and Terrence Howard? How we live in hyperbolic space. We don't live in hyperbolic space. We live in Lorentzian spacetime. And our space is Euclidean. Would there be any way for us to know what is in a black hole without dying? If we have a good theory of quantum gravity, that would give us a good idea. Why does the universe appear to have 1 time and 3 space dimensions? Because it does. If it didn't have that many, it would appear to look different, right? Do you think things can exist without having a beginning? Sure. How do we know that isotopic decay was always the same throughout history? Well, you could assume it's not, but then you'd have to assume that the laws of physics change throughout history. Which, if you look out at distant galaxies, we can see them, and we're seeing them as they were billions of years ago, and the laws of physics still seem to be true in those distant galaxies as it is now. How does an infinite universe expand? Learn what infinite means before saying stupid things. Oh, no, an infinite universe expands because expansion is a local thing. So imagine that you had a rubber band that's stretched off in both directions infinitely. Now imagine taking every pair of points and stretching them. Now it's expanded. Richard Arena, maybe learn what infinite means before saying stupid things. To assume the laws of physics are fickle is silly. True. I haven't looked at the new D&D rules, no. What is dark matter and dark energy? Dark matter is probably just a particle that we haven't seen yet. Dark energy is much more mysterious, and I have no idea what it is. But it seems to be what's driving the expansion of the universe. Can you explain string theory? Yeah, at the fundamental level, the idea is that instead of having quantum fields that are kind of like fundamental, that make particles, instead you have just like little strings everywhere that make up space-time, that make up all the particle fields, everything. And the way those strings vibrate tells you the kind of particle. Are entropy and time linked? Very likely yes, in my view. Do you have any favorite science fiction books? Probably Ender's Shadow is my favorite book. Sci-fi book. Do you think, or do we know if protons... We do not know if protons decay. I want them to decay, but I have a feeling they don't. Why would gravity cause wave collapse and not EM for Penrose? I have no idea. That's why I don't like that model. How does string theory fail? It didn't fail. It's just... Well, it sort of failed in that we don't have supersymmetry. We haven't detected supersymmetry, which is a problem. But that doesn't mean that supersymmetry is not real. Do you think there's a universal event horizon that we'll never be able to cross? Yes, there is. Well, it depends on the long time evolution of our universe. If our universe expands forever, then yes, there is. How do sea levels rise on a globe? Where does the extra water come from? It's not coming. There's not extra water. Well, there is extra water in the form of like ice that's on land, and that ice will melt and then run into the ocean. But mostly, it's just due to the water expanding because it's getting warmer. Liquids expand when they get warmer generally. Quick take on Planck stars. I don't know anything about them. Great attractor theory. What about it? It's not a theory. It's just there is a thing called the Great Attractor. It's probably just a whole bunch of galaxies that we can't see. Can you explain the fusion experiment that generated more energy that was put in? Yeah, basically, took a little tiny pellet of tritium. I think it was tritium deuterium mix. I think, and then they blasted it with lasers. And the lasers had way more energy than necessary, but they heated it up enough that the amount of energy that actually got dumped onto that little tiny pellet, or the amount of energy that got absorbed by the little tiny pellet, was less than the amount of energy that the little tiny pellet produced when the hydrogen fused. Is it theoretically possible to find out everything that's happened in the past? Probably not. What's the greatest hurdles in simulating physics on classical computers? The problem, or the curse of dimensionality. Is the first law of thermodynamics true? It's true in the places in which it applies. It doesn't always apply. Why can't you see the moon in the sky when it crosses the sun? Because so it's the same reason why you can't see a new moon during the day. Because the new moon doesn't emit light that you can see. The rubber band explanation failed miserably. Rubber bands aren't infinite. Well, yeah, so you have to use your imagination, buddy. If the Earth got smaller, does its gravity decrease or just increase in the horizon? Its gravity would increase, actually, assuming that the mass stays the same. Its gravity would increase at the surface. Could you consider meditation as a legitimately spiritual practice with empirical results? I don't know if it's legitimately spiritual. I don't know what that means. PhD in physics, yet you think the laws came from the Big Bang? I don't think the laws came from a Big Bang, no. How come we can't relocate atoms without deforming them? I don't know what you mean by that. Can dark matter accumulate in the center of the Earth? If so, can know the distribution versus dark versus normal? Yeah, there almost certainly is dark matter in the center of the Earth. Yeah. A favorite historical area period to research? I don't do a whole lot of historical research. If you're going super fast in a spaceship and put your hand out the window, will you feel anything? Well, aside from being sucked out because it's a vacuum and presumably you have air in your spaceship, no, you wouldn't feel anything. Do you weigh the same space? Weight is about the gravitational pull. So no, your weight decreases the weaker the gravitational pull. Gravity is still a theory, correct? Gravity is a bunch of things. Gravity is an observed phenomenon, in that you can drop things and it falls. Gravity is a law in the form of Newton's universal law of gravitation. There's also gravity, the theory of general relativity, which proposes to explain the phenomenon and the law. Let me skip down because I'm a little bit behind. Do you meditate? No, I don't. What would happen if you put an object in the observable universe immediately? I don't know what that means. Gravity is electromagnetic field. No, it's not. Are black holes what keeps the vibrating space-time cohesive? I don't think so. Wouldn't density or magnetics explain it better? No. No, it doesn't. Not at all. Newton or Einstein? Einstein. All right, I'm going to bring up another guest. We have another subscriber coming up. Do you like frogs? I do like frogs.
Hey,
Dr.
Dr.
Hetero. How's it going? What are we talking about?
Good. I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned how electrons are not particles and field excitation, they're field excitations. And I wanted to ask, what is a field describing? What is that force? And therefore, what is an excitation versus what is a particle? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so a field is a mathematical object, right? So at least like that's the way to really think about it. Think about a field as like assigning a number to every point in space. So like at every position, there's a number associated to it. Like the electric field. It tells you how strong the electric force is for if you put something there at every point in space. So the electron field would just tell you, in some sense, how many electrons are at every point in space. And so when the electron field is in a vacuum, when it's flat, it's 0 everywhere. But then you can imagine having an electron, which is a little bump in the field. It's a not 0 value, where everywhere else there's zeros. Something like that. You have to kind of think numerically. And so the way that we describe these things is as... And the reason why we think about it this way is because really the dynamics of electrons, the dynamics of photons, particles of light, the dynamics of all of these things is better described by fields overlapping and interacting than it is by particles bumping into each other. Which is why I say that more fundamentally, we should think of fields rather than particles.
And so the presence of these fields is ubiquitous. Yep. And the excitations would describe some sort of like concentration or something like that. I know.
Yeah, sort of. So one way to think about this is like, think like a wave pool, right? When the wave, when like the wave machine is off, you can think of that as having like no particles in it. But when you start the wave machine, now there's particles in it, and those particles are like they'd be called plane wave solutions, but we still think of them as particles, sort of. Or actually, better yet, imagine that you're in a still lake, and then you just push some water. Well, now you have like a little excitation, a little bump in the water that's traveling away from you. That would be something like, a particle if the surface of the water is the field.
And so fields are material. They're an aspect of material reality, right? But
That's a much harder
particles.
question to answer.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
can
this is what
probably
came to you.
ascribe some ontology to them, but we don't like that. That's a question for philosophy.
Really?
Yeah.
And so the nature of the interactions between fields and particles is, can you describe that at all?
Well, the point is that it's only possible to effectively model, as far as I know, it's only possible to effectively model like the dynamics of microscopic stuff if you think in terms of fields. Now, does that mean that fields are actually what truly exists and everything else is kind of just like emergent from that? Maybe. Or maybe there's something deeper that we haven't figured out yet.
Okay, and so fields are just a placeholder to describe forces that we can perceive, but we don't fully understand the nature of?
Yeah, and in some sense they're kind of one level deeper than thinking of things as particles.
Okay, is there, and so gravity is described as a field, right? And then there's
Yep.
this electromagnetic field. Are there any other things that need to be described as fields?
Everything is described as fields. All things.
Okay, so this is like okay, so all of the particles are constituted of field
Yep.
excitations of different sorts.
Yep.
And we don't fully understand the ontology of what a field
Yeah.
is.
I mean,
Is
like
there
you could
any-
just say fields are things that exist, and then your ontology is pretty easy. There are quantum fields. Those quantum fields interact with each other, and that's what reality is. But that's not something like that we can like prove, right? Like that's a philosophy question.
But so then, because it's that layer deeper, it reveals that our our immediate perception of things that we can touch and feel is actually constituted of this deeper thing called fields, which haven't been fully described.
Yeah, at least that's what it seems to be to me. I mean, it could be that perhaps the notion of field excitations is actually not the right way to think about it. Perhaps somebody can come up with a better way to think about it that is at like the same level of abstraction but is more accurate. And then we would have a reason to think that that's more ontologically correct than the field view. But, we can only work with what we have.
Do you think that because we must sort of use analogies from our immediate experience that we are in some way limited from understanding the total nature of the universe?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so is there any, first of all, I'd love to read about the discussions of what a field is, but are there also any good books or anything on, the limitations imposed on us by the need to use analogies from our immediate experience that you
Probably,
think are
but
good
those
and
would
not
probably
woo-woo?
those would probably be philosophy books that I don't know which ones they are.
But so I was listening to you talk in another TikTok live, and I wasn't sure of your thoughts on philosophy as a science that can explain things. What do you think about that? Because obviously you get to use math to prove things, right? And that's
Yeah.
the best way. We have, like, philosophy seems to be relegated to these areas where things are still so strange to us that we have to just use broad conjecture. What do you think about that in philosophy?
I think that philosophy is good so long as it follows the science. So long as you're letting your philosophy be guided by what's experimentally and mathematically true, then I have no problem with using philosophy. I just, for a lot of these things, it's just not what I spend my time reading because I have a day job. So I don't go out and read philosophy of science all that regularly. But it does exist, and there are people who are interested in studying it. And I think it's valuable.
Would you, so like an example, would you think that the atomists who, conjectured that there were atoms 2,000 years ago, like that was a useful use of philosophy, or was that just random? What do you think of that?
Oh no, I don't think that was super. So I mean that was philosophy before science existed. So
Yeah.
I don't even know. I mean, philosophy I suppose had some value back then, but I wouldn't consider it valuable in the same way that like philosophy of science is valuable today.
Are there any modern philosophers of science that you would recommend? Because I'm interested in that.
The only philosopher of science that I'd recommend is a physicist named Sean Carroll.
Well, I'll check that out. I
But
appreciate that.
he's just a physicist who does philosophy sometimes. He's not a philosopher by training.
Well, no, I love philosophy too, and I've always felt that an understanding of physics would allow your philosophy to be better because it would ground it in the quantitative.
That's my feeling too, but other people might disagree.
Oh yeah, well, well, thank you so much.
Of course. All right, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna answer some chat for a little bit longer.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Take care. He took a position of natural philosophy. I know he did, which is why he's properly called a philosopher now. Infinity plus one. What stupid people say? Nobody's saying infinity plus one. No, Sean is I think Sean's very, very smart. Do you still talk to Danny? Yeah, he's just on vacation. I text him occasionally. Yeah, we're cool. Did my internet just die? Oh, no, never mind. Okay. Is it possible for gravity to decay? Doesn't seem like it. No. Do you think afterlife, like heaven and hell are real? No, I don't think so. I think he is the frontier unless they have actually black projects. What? Who's the frontier? You can't ask questions like, does the past, present, and future happen simultaneously? Because that's asking if they happen at the same time. But if you're talking about time, you can't talk about them happening at time. What do you do at your day job? So today, I had a meeting in the morning, and then that went for a few hours, and then I spent most of the rest of the day, proving a theorem, which I did end up proving. I finished the proof, which is good because I've been working on that. I've been stuck on that for like a month or so, and then I had a meeting at the end of the day to talk about another collaboration. So, do you still write on chalkboards? I don't have any chalkboards, but when I have the opportunity, I do. And yes, I actually do have some of the fancy chalk. Let me show you. My wife got me a box for my birthday a few years back. See? Fancy chalk. It's the Hagoromo. Fancy chalk. It probably won't come up because I have the, see? I have a theory for stable chaos and a data type that can be used to okay. Everybody has their theory. How do scientists define time like as a concept beyond what people think of it as? We just use it mathematically. Do you believe in nothing? I don't know what that means. Hide it from Alvaro. He gets plenty. Components to atmospheric water generated. What? What makes that chalk fancy? It just writes really nice. I just had Darth Dawkins' stream give up on debating me. What? What do you mean by mathematically? Like, it's just a parameter. T. T increases, decreases, it's just a number. How are neutrinos discovered? In a cloud chamber, actually. I have a video on that. It's one of my more viral ones, in fact. What's 1 times 1? It's 1. Is your wife a scientist? No. She's a lawyer. How much more complex is time than the way we perceive it? It's relative, but besides that, if you call yourself a physicist, you're no physicist. My day job is physicist and mathematician. That's my day job. I work at a university doing physics and mathematics. It's my day job. So, you should write 200 digits of pi to outrank Newton. True, I should. Your opinion of geology? It's fine. I don't have any opinions on it, I guess. With atoms and molecules being reused and reused, is there any degradation at all of the particles? No. No, they stay the same. They must stay the same, in fact. I feel like my chat is lagging or people just aren't asking questions. What do you think of Perlman? Brilliant mathematician. One of the most brilliant alive today. Is pursuing a bachelor's in physics a good idea if you want to be rich? Probably not. Antimatter has mass. Yes, it does. And it falls down. What do numbers 3, 6, 9 mean for the universe? Nothing. They don't mean anything. They have nothing. They're not special. Can you explain vacuum decay? I do have a video on this, which would probably do a better job than me explaining it off the cuff. So I'm not going to do that. I'll refer you to the video on it. Explain how we can alchemize gold in a simple way and why it's not worth it. Well, look, so gold is just an atom with a certain number of protons and neutrons, and we can make atoms with however many protons and neutrons that we want. You just smash atoms together, and sometimes they fuse and make that atom. To do this requires a particle accelerator and tons of electricity. It's just not efficient. And you're making like a few gold atoms at a time. Are you a mad scientist at night? No, not really. How are there equations including gravity when it's a theory? Then I guess you just don't know what a scientific theory is. Like when we talk about theories in physics, we're talking about like mathematical models. So they have equations. How can you be an astrophysicist? Get a degree in astrophysics. Could your current work earn you a Nobel? Probably not. Probably not. I'm way behind. Do you believe in the universal wave function and many worlds hypothesis? Yes, I do. This is a simulation. Why isn't the solar? I don't think that this is a simulation. What are the trending numbers patterns? There aren't like trending numbers in the universe. Taking your advice video on submissions into account once I have it ready. Would you be ready? Willing? Submissions? Submissions to what? Are there any natural laws that make your research more annoying or difficult? Yeah, that we live in a universe, a Lorentzian universe. That makes my life difficult. Is Einstein any good at science? He was the best at science. At what point can someone call themselves physicist? Well, it's not a matter of education. It's a matter of what they're doing. Like, physicist is a job, right? It's not like you are a pediatrician if your job is to treat children as a medical doctor, right? Like that, it's a job title. Scientist or physicist is a job title. That's all. What made Einstein so good at science? I don't know. He had a big brain, though. Favorite physicist and most mind-blowing physics fact? Favorite physicist is Einstein because he's the GOAT. Most mind-blowing physics fact? That time is relative. That's weird. What's 0-point field or energy? I have a video on that, but basically it's just the minimum energy, which means that you can't actually get anything from it, because to get anything from it, you would have to make it drop below the minimum energy. But because it's the minimum, it can't go lower than that. How much do we actually know about the universe? That's an impossible question to answer because we don't know what we don't know. Do you think the wave function is material or abstract? I think that is the only physical thing. Submitted paper would be a refolding of the, what? The 11 dimensions to a membrane or multi-brain structure. How old are you now, and how old were you when you started grad school? I started grad school at 22. I'm 31 now. You seen that UCLA physicist who had an Instagram account and kept complaining about his salary? Yes, Daniel McEwen. I don't know him personally. Get all the funds and resources, what would you experiment? I don't know, I'm not an experimentalist. I'd have to think about that. Can you explain like in Feynman diagrams? Yeah, Feynman diagrams are basically like pictures to explain what's going on for a particle interaction. So you have two particles come in, one shoots out a photon, that photon splits into an electron and a positron, they recombine, form another photon, bounce into the other particle, and they both go about their own ways. It's just a picture, and those pictures have mathematical formulas associated with them. And so we can use them to calculate things in a sort of diagrammatic way. Is it impossible to reach 0 Kelvin, or would it be 0? I see what you did there. Isn't it cool you'll turn 1 billion seconds this year? Don't talk to me about that. Thank you for the something. Somebody just gave me something. By the way, consider supporting the live, because it's a cool thing to do, because cool people support lives. Can you speak on the weaponization of science, particularly by the military? I don't love it. Honestly. Not my favorite thing, to be honest. What are some new ideas that would be fun to learn about? Every Tuesday, I do peer review of a paper that I think is interesting. And I say peer review, I'm just reading a paper. I'm not actually like going over the math or anything. Thank you, Aaron, for the confetti. How can I think of QFT? Is there an intuition for a particle but not an energy field? Well, it's not an energy field. Think of it like waves in a pool. The particles are the waves. What do you think about Joe Rogan, Terrence Howard, and Eric Weinstein discussion? I don't care about it at all. If UWF can be completely described by equations, what about it as physical? Universal wave function can be completely described by equations. Well, just because you can describe something doesn't mean it's not physical. Can you explain how boundary conditions are determined when using Navier-Stokes? Well, yeah, you have to provide initial data and boundary data. That's necessary for solving hyperbolic PDEs. Which I guess Navier-Stokes is. How can you send me your paper? I probably won't read it. But you can always like message me on Discord or something. Who's your favorite 19th century physicist? Oh, that's tough. Probably Maxwell. What is the pool water then? That's the field. Do you prefer string theory or loop quantum gravity? I don't really prefer either. Can we see your papers freely? You could, but you'd have to know my name first, so I'm not going to tell you that. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. What's your favorite color and why is it purple? It's not my favorite color, but that's my wife's favorite color. And so a lot of the things in my house are purple and pink. Like so many things. But it's not bad. I don't mind. What the created Saturn without gravity jazz? He didn't create Saturn without gravity. Want to talk about black holes in my issue with the event horizon? We could, but I was actually going to end the live somewhat soonish because I've already been on for an hour and 45 minutes. I think I'm going to take another guest. I didn't invite you on purpose, no, Mr. Earth Guy. I did not. Yeah, these lives are quite short because I talk a lot and my throat gets a little sore. So Wednesday lives tend to be on the shorter side. Jeremy, no. Please don't do some digging. I'm going to ask you not to look into who I am. I like to keep my identity private. So, why? Because I don't need people like, I don't know, yelling at like my supervisor because I called them dumb for believing the earth is flat. So just please don't. Yes, first name Doctor, last name Blitz. True. All right, y'all, I'm going to end the live here because it's about 10 o'clock and I've been live for an hour and 45 minutes. So for everybody on YouTube, thank you for sticking around and watching. For everybody who's here in the live, I'll see you guys next week. Take care.